Hello, and welcome to this overview of Part 3 of the Urantia Book. My name is Elisabeth, and I'll be your guide for this quick summary of some of the highlights of Part 3. This part of the book takes us on an epic journey of revelation about the origin, purpose, and destiny of our human species. As a way of approaching its content, we will focus on three big questions that have puzzled humanity throughout history. First, what is the origin of life? Where do we come from? Second, does our life have any inherent meaning or purpose? And third, do we exist beyond death? Do we have a destiny beyond this earthly life? We'll discover that Part 3 of the Urantia Book holds awe-inspiring answers to these questions. We'll see that evolutionary progress is a dominant theme throughout many of the papers, so we'll focus on the theme of progressive evolution as we answer the three big questions. Okay, let's begin. Our journey through the cosmos takes us from the perfect center of creation, the Isle of Paradise, towards the outer edge of the Milky Way galaxy, where our planet, called Urantia, has been circling our sun and evolving for over 4 billion years. We begin in paper 57 with the creation of our solar system out of the Andronover Nebula nearly 6 billion years ago. This nebula gave birth to over 1 billion suns in our part of the universe before it finally collapsed. Our planet, Urantia, was formed from fragments of the sun in a slow cooker process that took several billion years. It was transformed from a primitive volcanic state subject to constant bombardment by meteors to one that eventually developed an ocean and atmosphere that became the cradle of life from which we evolved. This process continues to occur throughout the grand universe. Later, in paper 58, we learn about the establishment of the original plant life patterns in Urantia's warm and primitive ocean about 550 million years ago. This implantation of life was carried out by a unique order of beings called the life carriers, who are part of the universe Mother Spirit. All life on Earth evolved from these original organic life patterns. From there, we move on through hundreds of millions of years of long, slow, and often surprising evolutionary developments leading up to the dawn races of early humankind. Finally, in paper 63, we thrill to the news that the long ages of evolutionary development have given rise to the first truly human beings nearly 1 million years ago. The names of this remarkable pair are Andon and Fanta, and they were the first beings of animal origin on our planet whose minds evolved to the degree that the adjutant mind spirits of worship and wisdom could function in them. What makes human beings distinct from all other animal species is the fact that human minds are encircuited by all 7 of the adjutant mind spirits, whereas animal beings have only 5 or less adjutant mind spirits. Now, the attainment of all 7 adjutant mind spirits is always a momentous event in the universe. It is the moment when animal evolution on a developing planet reaches the threshold of free will, the power to make moral decisions and spiritual choices. The attainment of free will and the full circuitry of all 7 adjutant mind spirits absolutely separated our human ancestors, Andon and Fanta, from all other pre-human lineages, and eventually led to the rise of modern humans hundreds of thousands of years later. But even more profoundly, this evolutionary leap enabled the mind of humans to receive thought adjusters, another divine gift which endows human beings with infinite and eternal potential. Now, Let's return to our bird's eye view of Part 3. Hundreds of thousands of years go by as the offspring of Andon and Fanta continued to evolve by grappling with the countless challenges of the environment they lived in. Things like cold and hunger, wild animals, disease, mixing with inferior species, and territorial battles with their neighbors. Then, in paper 64, we read of a remarkable development in human evolution that occurred about 500,000 years ago. Suddenly, but not unexpectedly, the 6 evolutionary races of color developed among the descendants of Andon and Fanta: the blue race, the red, the yellow, the orange, the green, and the indigo, each with its own inherent potentials and strengths, and all with equal standing in the universe. This development of the 6 colored races, plus the subsequent introduction of the 7th violet race, almost 40,000 years ago, is a basic part of the evolutionary plan for the grand universe. All the colored races are intended to mix and blend in order to promote stronger and better strains of humanity through diversity, gene combining, and natural selection. Another remarkable event also took place around the same time that the 6 colored races appeared. Our world received its first planetary ruler, a celestial being named Callagastia. A planetary prince is assigned to every evolving planet in the universe that attains a certain level of development. The role of the prince and his staff is to advance the interests and promote the welfare of the evolving human races. However, in the case of our planet, the mission of the planetary prince Callagastia tragically miscarried about 200,000 years ago. This breakdown was directly related to the outbreak of the Lucifer rebellion in our corner of the universe. Callagastia formed an alliance with the insurgent Lucifer. This led to the derailment of the prince's organization and mission. In the end, their rebellion plunged our world into discord, confusion, and a state of cosmic quarantine. Their actions also contributed to the tragic default of Adam and Eve's later mission to uplift our world some 39,000 years ago. These acts of rebellion seriously hindered and delayed the divine plan for our human and planetary evolution. Meanwhile, the story of human evolution continues to unfold in Part 3 throughout many pages that focus on the cultural, anthropological, and religious history of human progress. They describe the arc of social, political, economic, and cultural development, from primitive forms of behavior to institutions of civilization that dimly reflect the ideal patterns of paradise. From early times, humans had to learn to band together for survival, for self-maintenance and self-perpetuation. These needs gradually led over many tens of thousands of years to cooperative associations and the development of primitive institutions of society like industry, trade, property, government, justice and human rights, marriage, home and family life, clans and tribes, education, agriculture, building, customs of dress and personal adornment, games, dancing, amusement, and war. The history of primitive man is a fascinating testimony to the possibilities inherent in the potentials of man's physical, intellectual, and spiritual endowments. What can we take away from observing the process of both planetary evolution and human evolution? One thing we realize is that virtually every individual thing in the universe has potentials stored within it that are uniquely expressed when the required conditions for growth are present. For example, from a tiny acorn comes a towering oak tree. From colossal clouds of nebular dust and gases come beautiful galaxies that evolve over eons of time, eventually becoming the nurseries of intelligent life. From simple forms of life that existed in our primeval oceanic world, the modern human has evolved. Inherent potentials are revealed and expressed through the mechanism of evolution. These potentials keep unfolding and evolving toward the fullest range of their unique expression. 1,000,000 years after Andon and Fanta achieved free will status, our species has evolved to the level where we are now busy decoding the biochemical language and potentials of our own DNA and searching for the source of mind itself. Simultaneously, we are exploring the cosmos through extremely large telescopes that are 100 times more sensitive than the Hubble Space Telescope. Our progress is astonishing. One of the most exciting things I think about Part 3 of the Urantia Book is the discovery that something extraordinary is occurring not only here on our planet, but everywhere throughout the grand universe. In the vast arena of finite time and space, an evolutionary process is taking place, a process of perfecting creation on all levels of matter, mind, and spirit. The process of perfection is achieved through progressive experience, the conversion of potentiality into actuality. This transfer of reality from potentials to actuals is a major concept that runs through the entire Urantia Book. We discover that each of us is intimately participating in this process, and that each of us uniquely matters to this process, even though we're just a tiny, infinitesimal part of the whole. Whether we're aware of it or not, we have been involved every day of our lives in the dynamic process of converting the potentials that are inherent in our body, mind, and spiritual self into the actual substance of our souls. Upon our physical death, it is our soul that's destined to survive in eternity. For those who hunger for spiritual truth, the Urantia Book contains much knowledge about the soul, that unique substance which carries our identity and the record of our human existence imprinted in it. The substance of the soul is called Urantia. This is the name of the great transitional plane of existence beyond this physical one. It exists between pure material reality and pure spirit reality. You might ask, how is a soul formed? Well, we actually co-create our soul during the millions of moments that we are alive. It grows out of the decisions we make and the actions we take, whether consciously or unconsciously, that align with God's will and plan for universe perfection. In a sense, our soul is woven from all those relationships and experiences in a well-lived life, which have eternal meaning and value. We grow our souls out of goodness, truth, beauty, and love by speaking and acting in ways that express brotherly love and respect, ways that demonstrate the underlying truth that we are all truly the sons and daughters of our universal Father, whether we profess a certain religion or not. One of the most magnificent revelations of Part 3 is that each of us is endowed with the gift of a thought adjuster, a divine fragment of the universal Father who is the source of all creation. The thought adjuster is a pre-personal spiritual reality that resides in our superconsciousness and elevates our mortal mind towards God consciousness. It acts as a pilot to direct us towards our true home and destiny, the Isle of Paradise. The thought adjuster usually arrives by a child's 6th birthday or upon the child's first moral decision. From that moment on, that child becomes co-creative in relationship with his or her thought adjuster in weaving an immortal soul. The gift of the thought adjuster endows mortal beings with the potential of becoming truly God-knowing because the thought adjuster is God, a pre-personal fragment of God that we are destined to fuse with if we so choose. This is the basis for the spiritual truth that we are made in God's image, his spiritual image. Now, after our physical death, the soul becomes the seat of our new Urantia identity in the next level of existence. The soul continues to evolve after death and will someday be ready to choose eternal life by fusing with the indwelling divine adjuster. Fusion with this divine fragment of God opens the door to an ascending journey of perfection. We grow towards perfection through knowing, loving, and serving God and his children throughout the universe of universes. The Urantia Book teaches that true religion is nothing less than the living experience of knowing God as your Father and man as your brother. We will go through an inconceivably long refinement process that requires ages upon ages of study, enlightened experience, and progressive accomplishment. Be aware that there is a mighty purpose to this long evolutionary process. It will eventually lead us to a marvelous career of sublime service throughout the worlds of the Master Universe for all eternity. And that brings us to one of the most sublime revelations of the Urantia Book, the existence of the Supreme, the Oversoul of creation, in whose immanence we live and move and have our life. Since the next module in this Part 3 mini-course focuses on the Supreme, I'll just touch on our part in the life and evolution of the Supreme. First, it is important to realize that the Supreme is an evolutionary deity who is gradually evolving in some respects like we are, out of the combined experience of all the creators and creatures in the grand universe. Second, our relationship to the Supreme is the basis for the real meaning and value of our individual lives. Not only do we share a brother-sister relationship with one another, we are each children of the Supreme. We are all striving together for God attainment and divine perfection. And when this inconceivably vast striving to actualize all the potentials inherent in the Supreme and in all created beings, as well as the entire physical universe, is fully consummated, something astounding, beyond our comprehension will occur. God, the Supreme, will be fully actualized as the Supreme Being. It's interesting to note that Part 3 of the Urantia Book begins with the planting of life on Earth. This is our origin. After many ages of evolutionary development, human beings emerged from this long process and attained an advanced level of consciousness that prepared the way for the bestowal of the divine adjusters upon the human mind. This phenomenal achievement of indwelling by God triggered the next stage of the divine plan for human development. Within this extraordinary stage, we discover our purpose: to realize the divine will of God and choose to actualize it in our lives, while simultaneously becoming perfect in eternity as the Universal Father is perfect. But it doesn't stop there. One of the most stunning revelations of the Urantia Book is that this process is happening all over the grand universe, and it is part of an even greater and unimaginably vast and sublime process that was set into motion by the Paradise Trinity in eternity, the evolution of the Supreme Being, of which we are an intimate part. This, then, is our destiny: the actualization of the Supreme Being and a life of eternal service in the grand universe. And so we return to where we started when we asked the three big questions. What is the origin of life, our life, on this planet? What is the purpose and meaning of our life? And what is our destiny beyond this earthly life? We hope your curiosity has been ignited to go deeper, and that you have gotten a meaningful glimpse into the immensity of the answers to these questions. We will need the insights of science, philosophy, and religion to keep probing the true nature of total reality for ages to come. Nonetheless, it remains forever true. We have a sacred origin, a glorious purpose, and an infinite and awesome destiny in eternity.